webinar on environmental safeguarding action, implementing effective monitoring and evaluation for environmental and social management plans through project life cycle. My name is Bhagya. I'll be moderating this session today, and we are delighted to have you join us from different parts of the country and the region, maybe from the other countries as well. Before begin, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to Sri Lanka Evaluation Association for hosting this event and bringing together experts and participants to share knowledge and insights. Now, to officially begin the session, I would like to invite Ms. Piroshini Trikawalagoda to deliver the opening remarks representing Sri Lanka Evaluators Association. Before that, let me give some brief introduction on Ms. Piroshini. She's an independent evaluator and researcher specialized in participatory approaches, and she has been a member of Sri Lanka Evaluation Association since 2009 and held positions of Vice President, Secretary and Council Member of the Executive Council of Sri Lanka Evaluation Association from time to time, and she's a member of the current Executive Council. So over to you, Piroshini, for the opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhagya. Good evening and warm greetings from Sri Lanka to all of you joining us from many countries in the region as well as from Nigeria in Africa. Today is the 9th session of the SLEvA webinar series during the year 2025. It is wonderful to see the interest of so many participants from the government and the private sectors, a Federation of Local Government Authorities, professionals and students, UN agencies and other INGOs, NGOs and academia in exploring an area that plays a vital role in sustainable development. Our topic being environmental safeguards in action, implementing effective monitoring and evaluation for environmental and social management plans throughout project life cycle. Before we commence, let me briefly introduce Sri Lanka Evaluation Association, widely known as SLEvA. Initially catalyzed by UNICEF and the governance project of UNDP under the then Ministry of Plan Implementation, SLEvA was institutionalized as a voluntary civil society organization in the year 1999 with a vision to promote an evaluation culture in the country. SLEvA membership includes a wide cross-section of professionals from academia, international agencies, non-governmental agencies, public and private sectors. SLEvA has 4 key focus areas. Evaluation capacity development. We conduct capacity building of the public sector of officials at national and subnational levels. These free evaluation webinars are also a result of SLEva's capacity building effort and attract a wide audience from around the world. Next is developing and enabling environment for evaluation, including making resources available for evaluation. Then, advocacy for evaluation policy environment, quality evaluations and use of evaluations for decision making. Last but not least, professionalization of evaluation to promote standards, ethics and guidelines for evaluations leading to quality evaluations. SLEva's main strategic partner is the Department of Project Management and Monitoring of the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. SLEvA also collaborates with regional and international evaluation networks, Center for Evaluation at the University of Sri Jayawardenepura and development partners. Today's topic is particularly relevant as we all have a mutual interest in environmental safeguards. Focus on environmental action is a core area of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Several sustainable development goals such as goal 13, 14, 15, 6, 7 and also 12 work together to promote protection of our planet. However, UNESCAP analysis shows that at the current rate of progress, environmental sustainability remains inadequate in our region. Hence, it is of utmost importance that we give adequate attention to environmental and social management plans to ensure effective and sustainable results. So monitoring and evaluation becomes an essential component to ensure assessing success and informed decision making for improving future environmental and social management plans and meaningful action. And it will directly address environmental sustainability, protecting the planet from degradation and destruction. Therefore, today's topic is of immense importance of an area that needs urgent attention. We are privileged to have with us Professor Hemanthi Ranasinghe, who has contributed immensely to environmental conservation and sustainability in Sri Lanka and beyond, to share her insights on implementing effective monitoring and evaluation for environmental and social management plans throughout the project life cycle. On behalf of SLEvA, I extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Ranasinghe for accepting our invitation and to all participants who joined us today. We also extend our appreciation to our moderator, coordinator, and the organization team for their continued dedication in making this webinar series a success. We would like to encourage the participants to engage in an interactive Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Piroshini, for your insightful opening remarks. Now it is the time to introduce our speaker today, as Ms. Piroshini mentioned. She is Senior Professor Hemanthi Ranasinghe. Let me give a brief on her bio. Professor Hemanthi Ranasinghe is a well-known environmental specialist and evaluator with over 40 years of experience in forestry, environmental management, and climate change. And she has led numerous national and international assignments in environmental safeguards, monitoring and evaluation, and ESG integration throughout project cycles. And also, she is former senior professor at the University of Sri Jayawardenepura. She has contributed extensively to Sri Lanka's national climate reporting, environmental assessment, and policy development. And Professor Ranasinghe continues to serve as co-chair of IUCN's Commission on Ecosystem Management for South Asia, and as a council member of Sri Lanka Evaluation Association, promoting evidence-based and sustainable project implementation. So today, Professor Ranasinghe will be sharing insights on effective monitoring and evaluation for environmental and social management plans, which will be very valuable session for all of us. Before transferring the floor to Professor Ranasinghe, let me introduce a few housekeeping points to ensure the smooth delivery of the session. Please keep your microphones muted during the presentation to avoid background noises. And you can submit your questions through the chat box, and we'll be addressing your question at the end of the session. And at the end of the session also, you can raise your questions. And this session will be recorded for future references of SLEvA and to wider dissemination. So with that note, let me open the floor to Professor Hemanthi for her presentation. Thank you. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, SLEvA. Thank you, Piroshini. Thank you, Bhagya. And thank you, Randi, and all the coordination team of SLEvA on this webinar series. Let me share my presentation. Just let me get the slideshow. Okay. As mentioned, the SLEvA is really SLEvA has the mandate of inculcating monitoring and evaluation, rather evaluation culture in the society. Environment is a very important aspect in our lives, entire lives, and also especially so in our development process. So what I'll be talking today will be environmental safeguards in action. That is implementing effective monitoring and evaluation for environmental and social management plans throughout the project cycle. So how you ensure that development projects ensure environmental and social safety is by preparing management plans, environment management plans and social management plans. And I would like to talk about how this monitoring and evaluation can be infused for the success of this for the entire project cycle. The global safeguard is international frameworks. International frameworks provide environmental and social risk management. And we know that especially multilateral banks, such as the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, have their own safeguard policies and also safeguard frameworks. For example, World Bank Environmental and Social Framework has 10 environmental and social standards covering labor, stakeholder engagement, biodiversity, cultural heritage, and pollution prevention. And it's been formulated from a very long time. And IFC performance standards, we have 8 standards focusing on private sector investments with emphasis on business sustainability and environmental management. Then we go to Asian Development Bank safeguard policy, covers environmental safeguards, which includes involuntary resettlement and indigenous peoples with integrated approach. And equator principles are there, like voluntary framework adopted by 140 more financial institutions for project finance risk management. So the common to all is that they require the projects and programs should resort to environmental and social management plans throughout the project cycle, not only when the project is being constructed or planned and constructed, but entire implementation period also. So this is the project cycle, that is environmental screening. For example, if you take a development project, at the project identification, you do based on the magnitude of the components under the National Environment Act. I'm talking about Sri Lanka, but in other countries also it's like that. So a project, when it is identified, the environmental screening and baseline scoping is done. And that is how these environmental impact assessment reports are required, or initial environmental examination reports, or even if it doesn't qualify for those, at least the environmental examinations are important. Then you prepare the project, and then environment and social management plan development is there. Once it is there, so that it ensures that environmental and social safeguards are ensured during the construction phase as well as the implementation phase. And it requires detailed design, indicators, and stakeholder consultations. Then the implementation phase, active monitoring, reporting, and adaptive management is there. And then finally, when the project is in operation, long-term monitoring and final evaluation is there. So environmental and social management plan is an environmental and is a comprehensive framework that identifies environmental and social risk and defines specific actions to mitigate, monitor, and manage them throughout the project cycle to ensure compliance with environmental regulations, protect communities and ecosystems, and provide systematic approach to managing environmental and social impacts. So the core components of these environmental and social management plans are mitigation measures are there, which are specific actions and interventions to address identified environmental and social risks and minimize negative impacts. Then you formulate monitoring plans, that is systematic tracking of environmental performance through indicators to ensure compliance and measure effectiveness. Who will do that? So it is very important. Just having set of indicators will not do the job. So who will do that? That's called institutional arrangements, clear defined roles, responsibilities, and organizational structures for implementation of the environment and social management plans. Then you need capacity building because maybe the development partner, maybe during the construction, the contractor may not have all the skills to implement this. So you need capacity building, training and development programs to enhance environmental management capacities and staff and all stakeholders, including communities, neighbors. And then you need budget and resources, adequate financial and human resource allocation to ensure effective environment and social management plan implementation for sustainability. So the fundamentals of this in M&E perspective is that it is results-based management, that is the results-oriented, focus on measurable outcomes and environmental performance, adaptive, that is responsive to changing conditions and new information, and it is participatory, engage stakeholders throughout the M&E process. So it follows the M&E cycle, that is you plan, then you monitor, you evaluate, and you adjust towards continuous improvement. So, and the indicators that you select to measure the success or failures of the activity should be SMART. That is, it should be specific, clearly defined, and unambiguous, measurable, quantifiable with defined units, achievable, realistic and attain targets, relevant, aligned with project objectives, and should be time-bound. So always there's when you need to have a reference point, that is without the project and with the project. So the baseline is the initial reference condition and measured before project activities begin. Provides the benchmark against which all future changes and impacts are measured throughout the project life cycle. So baselines in the context of development projects are embedded in the environmental impact assessment reports, because you need to have a baseline. That is the Chapter 3 of all these reports, environmental assessment reports, is talking about the baseline scenario. Then you come to then the project comes in, but you need to have thresholds. And for example, like water quality, if a project might change the water quality of a adjacent water body, then you need to use the standards, SLA standards for water quality in aquatic ecosystems, for example, or if it is going to a area where you procure drinking water, then drinking water standards are there. So standards are there where the maximum or the emission standards, if it is emitting pollutants to the air, there is emission standards. So that is the threshold. What is the maximum that you can go? Beyond that, you cannot. You have to turn around. So those are called thresholds, the predetermined limit or trigger points that when exceeded require specific management actions, defines acceptable ranges and escalation protocols. There are the trigger points. Compliance means the parameters are within acceptable limits. Continue routine monitoring and reporting, that's fine. But then the yellow one, supposing the limits are approaching threshold limits, that is the standards against which that you have prepared the environmental and social management plan, then you have to do increased monitoring frequency and prepare corrective actions. So it is really nice that monitoring and evaluation, when you infuse it to this plan, it is very, very flexible, that, it is adaptive. That is the important thing. And alert means threshold exceeded, immediate corrective action required, and, escalate to management. So baseline air thresholds, as I talked about, these are some examples. For example, like air quality, that PM means the particulate matter in air quality performance, because we know that when there's a lot of particulate matter, it is difficult to breathe. I mean, it's really a health hazard. So supposing a project, for example, if it is a coal power project, when you check the particulate matter in the air, in the emissions, if it is like baseline 45, which is a allowable limit, it's okay. If it is 80, you need to be very alert and take corrective action. If it really goes like beyond that, like 100, which is the threshold, no, then you need to do something about it. You need to reverse. Like that. So construction phase, now it comes to the monitoring and evaluation in construction phase. Now a project is being constructed, and intensive monitoring ensures real-time detection and response of environmental impacts like air quality, like PM10, PM2.5, needs to be monitored maybe daily. Daily monitoring at site boundaries, immediate dust suppression if exceeded, because it will really, impinge on the quality of life of the people living, in the neighborhood. Noise levels. Weekly measurements at sensitive receptors restrict noisy work to daytime. Sometimes some work during construction goes on till about 12 or even round the clock, and it disturbs people to have a good sleep. Then water quality, measured usually by pH and then total suspended solids, BOD, monthly sampling at discharge points and receiving water bodies. And waste management, daily tracking of generation, segregation, storage, and disposal records. Sometimes, when you construct, for example, you excavate a lot in a construction. Maybe it's a reservoir, maybe it's some kind of a building. Then, the excavated material is stockpiled, and it is not disposed. And that will really, when the rain comes, it will wash off and goes to the rivers and streams and water bodies and pollutes the water as well. So, I mean, this have to be looked at. Then the systematic monitoring frequency, adaptive management, and comprehensive documentation is very important, like daily site logs, weekly reports, monthly summaries, and photo evidence. And then you come to the operation phase. Very important focus areas is facility performance, wastewater treatment efficiency, emission compliance, resource consumption, whether, I mean, these are doing well as per the expectations, ecosystem recovery, revegetation success, habitat restoration, biodiversity. For example, like you have constructed a reservoir in an area which had been a forest before. And as a mitigation measure, maybe you can't help it or you could not help it, but you have given the mitigation that you will plant a area surrounding the reservoir with the same species that was there before. So you need to see how, I mean, maybe you have planted, but whether how well it's doing, how well the ecosystem is recovering in this context. Then community impacts, noise from operations, traffic patterns, livelihood restoration outcomes, whether, I mean, are they impacted, adversely, and long-term commitments, biodiversity offsets, compensation programs, community development initiatives, whether they are doing, because most of the time, why I'm saying this is that it is everybody is so interested when until the project is in place. And afterwards, I mean, it's happening. And so that maybe it might be a little difficult although there's this environment and social safeguard plans are there, I mean, to really scrutinize them and make sure that it happens, maybe you need to put a lot of effort. So it is very important to ensure this. When the project is no longer there, the funding is no longer there, but still a mechanism has to be in place to monitor this. And this monitoring and evaluation may be just words, but unless and until you have this institutional arrangement to monitor the project, not only during the construction, not only during the initial operations, but until the entire lifetime of the project, is very important. Then I think I mentioned this one. Yes. So stakeholder engagement is very important because consultation with the regular engagement with people, a stakeholder means not only the affected parties, but then the government agencies who are, who are mandated to, ensure that, all levels of society in this particular area is given good quality of life. So then there would be private sector, there would be affected communities. So you should really do consultation. It's a very in-depth consultation you need to do, and you have to get their feedback. And if there are any grievances, maybe like, they have lost water for their farming because of these construction projects. They have lost land, so many grievances, and they have been promised alternative land, but, it's not happened yet. So there has to be a grievance redress mechanism established from the beginning of the construction of the project, so that everybody will not be negatively impacted. And when you do the reporting, various reporting are there with regard to this environment and social management plan. Maybe the site logs, inspections, incidents, which are daily reporting. Sometimes there could be accidents. There could be some excavations which are not covered, so that even your workers, face accidents and sometimes death even. So some machinery is not really not up to the standards. So therefore, malfunctioning of the machineries have really caused accidents. So that these have to be monitored by the site staff daily. Then weekly, monitoring data, compliance status, like I said, the air quality, then waste management, it should be daily ones. And then monthly, the consolidated results, then GRMs, CAPs, and quarterly, a trend analysis, management review, because when you have quarterly data, all the data up to the quarterly data, a trend analysis can be prepared and put to the management review. And then annually, performance assessments, audits can be done. And always it is needed to disclose these things as to what you do to the public. Public means, the relevant public, because it is a very important thing. What is the monitoring results, the thresholds, and exceedance and responses, grievances received and resolved, corrective actions taken, and any upcoming events. This may be, the ideal situation, but if we can get to that one, that would be really good, so that we can really ensure that sustainable development is in place in the country. Non-compliance management, that is low, if it is, if when you monitor, you see that there are minor compliances only, and it may be like a low environmental risk, isolated incident, no regulatory exceedance, then you request them to respond within 7 days. Okay, you give some time. If it is moderate, medium risk, potentials for escalation, approaching thresholds, then you ask them to respond within 2 days. If it is major, high risk, regulatory exceedance, significant environment harm, response immediate. So this monitoring, although, you might get the idea, and sometimes it's the norm, that this will be done by the agency who are sponsoring the project, or will be by a third party, but monitoring and evaluation ideally needs to be done by the stakeholders themselves, which is in the monitoring and evaluation is called participatory evaluation. When it happens, nothing gets lost, because the participants, the stakeholders are in the process, they know what's happening. For example, like if a river is being abundant and water is being released at times, then if it doesn't happen, the downstream users know that it is not coming. Then they can always say, okay, why is it not coming? We didn't get water for X number of days. So then, it will be informed to the project. So it's like very, very fluid, very participatory. But if somebody comes after like 3 years of the project implementation and do some evaluation, it may not be, he or she might lose a lot of information. Then corrective action process, that you identify the problem, detecting and documenting the non-compliance, then you investigate the root cause, then creative action is being developed, then creative action is being implemented, and that will be monitored, and verification will be done. If there are issues, then this is how you do that. And also the budgeting is very important for environmental and social management plan. Otherwise, if you don't realistically budget, that would be a problem. So actually now I will really go to these are like adaptive management, which I have been talking about. That is for continuous learning, you need to plan, you need to evaluate, you need to adjust and implement. It's really a very moving cycle. And so pitfalls are very important in this context. The common pitfalls and solutions are inadequate baseline data, starting projects without a comprehensive environmental baseline studies. That is, you start projects, but you don't collect the data for which you need to be evaluated. So when evaluations comes, there's no baseline data to evaluate again. So it's very important to have. So EIA programs, the projects which qualify for EIA and IEE, of course, the baseline data is there. But for other projects, may or may not be. And then weak institutional capacity, that is insufficient trained personnel and unclear roles and responsibilities. I mean, there are times where, I mean, even when the projects are given to contractors, they are supposed to prepare their own environmental management plans during the tendering process. But most of the time, although they submit and win the project, the plan is nowhere to be found. They are not even aware of it. So maybe they don't have the capacity to operationalize their own environmental management plan, or they don't give a lot of emphasis on that. And reactive approach is addressing issues only after they occur instead of prevention, which is wrong. So as the proven solutions, when there's inadequate baseline data, comprehensive baseline studies need to be done prior to the project. And then weak institutional capacity, you need to have capacity building programs by the client to the contractors as well, and not only them, but to the communities in and around. And reactive approach is that implement regular monitoring with early warning indicators. We know that even for a disease, if you are having some disease, it would be better to know beforehand rather than wait and get the symptoms and then respond to it. It is more successful to identify the disease beforehand. So I'm just walking you through very quickly on a project which I have been instrumental as the environmentalist, so that I'll show you how all these components that we learned is happening or happened. So this is actually ADB assisted dry zone urban water and sanitation project. And it was funded by the ADB, and the client is Water Board. And I'm only talking about one component. It has several components. One component was bunding a river, which is called Pereyaru in Vaunia, to supply drinking water to the town, because the drinking water status was rather poor in this town. So the project overview, very briefly, yes, means it is a water supply project and Asian Development Bank. Total project cost was this much, and the project was 5 years duration. And the objective was provide safe, reliable drinking water to Vaunia through surface water intake from Pereyaru, and construction of a new water treatment plant to serve the growing population and address the critical water shortage affecting the district. So the environmental and social safeguard was to ensure environmental compliance through continuous monitoring and reporting in accordance with the ADB safeguard policy statement, integrating environmental management throughout the project cycle, from design to construction to operation, all three stages of the project. As I mentioned earlier, the problem was dearth of water. At that time, before the project, only 4 to 6 hours per day of intermittent pipe water supply was available, and population was quite high, and they were even increasing. There was this challenge of supplying the water, and many options were looked at. And finally, the solution came down to the surface water extraction from this river. Of course, in Tamil, they call Aru. So that is why they call it Aru. And so this is how it is. This is the reservoir. This is in the land use. This is the reservoir which is being constructed. With the abstraction rate and area included was 238 hectares. And mind you, it was really sitting on, good plush dry zone forest. At that moment, of course, there was no other option. So many places were looked at, but this was the only location which was possible, engineering-wise and otherwise. So technical specifications, I will not go into detail because I just want to show you. But especially, I must say that environmental flow, because when you bund a river, downstream area gets dry. But environmental flow was, sent. That is, a dedicated sluice was there to maintain the downstream ecological flow, not the same flow that river had, but the flow which is adequate to sustain life downstream, including the plants and the animals. Since it's an ADB project, the ADB safeguards were in action. And so there were these three phases. Design phase, where the environmental impact assessment was also done, and 2011 to 2012 environmental impact assessment was done, baseline environmental surveys were done, so adequate monitoring data, the baseline were available. Then environmental management plan was developed, and CA approval and licensing was received, and monitoring framework established. Then the construction was from 2013 to 2016. Construction of the reservoir and the environmental management plan was implemented. Regular monitoring and reporting was done. Mitigation measures were ensured, including the establishment of a buffer zone around the reservoir, so that at least it will mimic the natural environment which was there prior to the project. And then the compliance verification, adaptive management was done. The people who lost their land by the inundation to the reservoir, they were given land, and grievance redress system was established at the government agencies, and it was operational. So during the operation, once the reservoir was done, and of course not only 2019, but it's in operation now, operational monitoring, water quality management, environmental performance tracking, community feedback was done. So ADB had evaluated it, because ADB as a sponsor evaluated this project in 2015 as well as 2019. So comprehensive baseline studies were conducted at the baseline stage, as I mentioned earlier, air quality measurements at project site and surrounding areas, water quality analysis of surface water and groundwater, then ambient noise level surveys at sensitive receptor locations, then biodiversity assessments covering flora and fauna, in the project area, then socioeconomic surveys of affected communities, and archaeological and cultural heritage surveys. Then the concerns were that, as I mentioned, riverine forest and sensitive ecosystems were there, and they were, impacted due to the construction. The archaeological cultural heritage sites, they were not very much of a presence there. Existing water tanks and irrigation systems were there. Downstream water uses and environment flow is a concern because there were many farmers downstream who were dependent on the water flow from this river, and resettlement of the affected households, and construction impacts on air, water, and noise quality. So this is how the plan is. That is, for example, air quality, the parameters, so that this ESMP includes this parameters to monitor, for example, PM10, PM2.5, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide. Then frequency, it's very important how frequent you monitor. Monthly during the construction here, responsible agency who contractor and be supervised by the consultant engaged by the client. Then water quality source, pH, turbidity, total suspended solids, BOD, COD, dissolved oxygen, coliforms, and that would be this quarterly and this waterborne. And water quality treated, the treatment, there's a treatment plant also. So water quality treatment, what is the chlorine residual in the water, exactly like that. During the construction, monthly air quality measure, I just mentioned that one earlier, I think. So the overall, so when the third parties, not third party, actually ADB had done this midterm review. So what they found was that all environmental parameters remain within acceptable limits throughout the construction period. Regular monitoring confirmed that the project maintained compliance with national standards and ADB safeguard requirements. And corrective actions implemented. Minor exceedances were there in dust and noise levels, and they were addressed promptly through water spraying on unpaved roads and construction areas, regular equipment maintenance to reduce noise emissions, adjustment of working hours to minimize community disturbance, and enhanced erosion control measures during monsoon season. So what they have done during construction, the baseline was there before the project, and then during construction, these were the figures, and then the column has the limits, that's the standards, and so on force all were compliant. So to make it, to know that whether it complies or not, you should have the standards. So this is what it really shows. And during the operational, once the operational period is there, with regard to this water treatment plant, which became operational in 2017, daily chlorine residual testing at the water treatment plant and distribution points, because chlorine has to be at a certain level and not more or not less. And weekly comprehensive testing per SLS standard 614, monthly raw water sampling and peri-RO intake for physical, chemical, and biological parameters. And also in a quarterly inspection of sludge in drying beds with proper disposal maintained in the water treatment plant, backwash water recycling and treatment protocols consistently followed. Likewise, then community and social monitoring, annual review of grievance mechanism conducted, whether anybody is having any more grievances, or if there are any, whether they have been addressed. No major complaints recorded during operational phase. That was the result. Significant reduction in waterborne diseases reported by health authorities, and high community satisfaction with improved water access and quality. The safeguard review in 2015, comprehensive scope is that, EMP implementation status and effectiveness, of which they said is good, and contractor environmental compliance with specifications. I mean, it had been successful. It has been satisfactory. Dust, noise, and vibration control measures had been good. Waste handling and disposal practices had been all right. Water quality monitoring and per-hour intake had been good. And occupational health and safety protocols had been good. So this is, this is how it appears. Like so the compliant areas are there. All are in place. Regular reporting to ADB and CA had been done, and areas for improvement like dust control corrected, waste segregation at sites improved, safety training increased. So overall assessment is compliant with FDB safeguard policy statements. So, even at the 2019, it had been the same thing. Overall rating satisfactory and sustainable long-term environmental governance and strengthened within the water board. So that is midterm as well as in the end of term reviews had proved that project has gone according to the thing. So that so design phase, construction phase, and operational phase, this is how it looks like. So that is how monitoring and evaluation is infused into development projects. And lessons learned, early integration is critical. That is embedding monitoring requirements in the EIA and EMP from the design phase ensures clear expectations and accountability throughout the project cycle. That is, if it is not infused in the design phase, you will not get the relevant data to monitor subsequently. And multi-stakeholder representation is very important because you need to get all the players and get their ideas in developing the environmental safeguard plan. Adaptive management is very important because regular monitoring data enables timely identification of non-compliances or things which had gone wrong or which is going wrong, and implementation of corrective actions such as dust control, for example, and erosion barriers. And then institutional capacity building, training of the water board staff in environmental monitoring strengthened long-term sustainability beyond project completion. So even after the project, when you build capacity, it goes further. And community engagement matters. Grievance mechanisms and community feedback loops ensured social acceptance and early detection of the local concerns. Before things go very bad, you talk to people, you address their concerns, and you get them on board, which is very important. And independent oversight is also very important while participatory monitoring and evaluation happens, like ADB did at the midterm as well as the end of term, independent monitoring missions are also very important. And regular reporting to ADB and the CEA, who is really the compliance authority who provided compliance, and stakeholders maintain accountability and facilitated learning for future projects. So that is end of my presentation. So that is the lessons learned. That is, it is very important to infuse monitoring and evaluation at the very beginning of any project or programs, and do it in a very participatory manner so that any deviations also can be corrected well in advance and achieve the goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Hemanthi, for very informative and very insightful presentation. So now this is the time for questions and answers session. Still, you can put your questions in the chat box. Let me begin with one of the questions in the chat box. What are common challenges in integrating monitoring and evaluation systems into ESMP in Sri Lanka? Sri Lankan development projects. It's particularly about Sri Lankan development project. What are the common challenges in integrating M&E systems into ESMP? Over to you, Madam.
Yes, thank you. That's a very, very important and relevant question. What happens is that, during a project, maybe, especially if it is even a large development project, during the construction phase, it is easy because there are people in place. There's a client is there, the contractor is there, perhaps a consultant is there. So the institutional capacity is very available, much available, and also the funds available. But once the project is over, once the reservoir, for example, is finished, then comes the operational phase where there are maybe the human, then no contract is there, only maybe the regional manager in the water board, for example, and he has to ensure he has a lot of work on his plate, not only this project, and maybe there are not enough funds also to do the expected monitoring. So then, of course, it's a problem. So that is why I said that at the very beginning, at the very onset, at the design, you need to say, like, once the project is over, then there has to be a coordination committee. Maybe not even be, until it's over, but during the construction, even a coordination committee has to be formulated. Maybe mostly from the stakeholders from the village. Also, the village and other regular interest parties, so that they will meet on a regular basis and look at the reports that will come, and so there would be an interest to continue. Because it is their thing. Even in the project, people were very happy that they got water. Projects come to address the issue, no? So that they can be part and parcel of this, the monitoring committee, not only the real officials only, and then definitely some money has to be allocated by the client to do the monitoring in the annual budget plan, so which is very important. So unless and until you have it, it will be difficult to monitor in the implementation phase.
Thank you so much, Madam. We have another question in the chat box. Developing environmental impact indicators may be relatively straightforward. However, developing and monitoring social impact indicators as well as implementing M&E for social outcomes can be more challenging. Could you please share your practical thumb rule that can help simplify this process? So let me repeat the question again.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I understand.
Yeah.
Actually, for example, if it's been exceedingly used on the ADB safeguard guidelines, the World Bank guidelines, and JICA also has similar guidelines. You can use it for any project, even big or small. And they have not only for the ecological parameters, our physical parameters, like you mentioned, but social parameters also. For example, like even the project that I portrayed, there's huge social component there. Some people lost their land. Maybe they are legitimate land, illegitimate land, but that doesn't matter. They lost their land, so that they have to be compensated. So they have to be compensated by other land, or even even much better, because according to the involuntary resettlement policy, people should not be let down, but then maybe kept on the same status or even higher. So whether it's been done, because this process has to start even before the construction. That's the rule, right? So that how many people got compensated, and compensated, what's the time of compensation? Whether, they were compensated years after? No. And then for projects of they lost access roads. So that whether alternative access road was constructed, and whether their transport mechanism was ensured and it was not blocked because of this one. Whether any cultural dimensions were negatively impacted, especially during the construction phase. Whether any cultural conflicts happened in the vicinity, whether these people were impacted negatively through the air pollution, maybe like dust and soot emanating from the project. So social, and then and also the positive side, we can say in the implementation, you get more water to drink coming on a regular basis. Maybe the sanitation condition also is improved. So how many diseases, if it had been cholera or dysentery, the reduction rate of that one, because of having the clean water to drink, and the number of hospitalized cases, whether they have reduced. So they have taken all that into account, and in the final analysis also, although it was a general one, says that the quality of life of the people had improved. So there are very distinct indicators for social as well. Social is a very important part of this whole gamut of things, not only physical and biological, but social side. Yes.
Thank you so much, Professor Ranasinghe. Anyone having any questions or clarifications or sharing your experiences related to this topic? This is the time for you. Any questions from the audience? Yes, please. Someone raised the hand. Please unmute and go ahead. Thank you.
I'm Ranjit Tabru, member of SLEvA. Professor Ranasinghe, excellent presentation. But I have two questions that I'd like to raise. How do you prioritize the compliance of environmental safeguards as against the importance of and value addition of the project to the country? So that is the first question. And the second question is, what is the action one takes if the project proponents do not comply with environmental standards stipulated? This is after the construction, during the operation. For example, air pollution from power plants and motor vehicle emissions, like that.
And thank you very much, Mr. Tabru. Yes, first one is that actually for any development project, I'm just taking an example, this CA or the CA designate the power is designated to relevant institution. They look at the project, they go to the site, and based on it, they decide on the magnitude of whether it should be EIA or EE, and then they give a terms of reference. And then in the terms of reference, of course, the entire list of parameters that could arise comes in. And then the EIA team, the environmental assessment team, work on it. And they may find a lot of impacts. But then they, in the context of development, in the context of balance, they prioritize the most significant ones only. And then to that also, they provide mitigatory measures. For example, like even the same thing, that this water thing, I mean, it was really a must to provide the continuous water supply, drinking water supply to the town. So there was no other way, no groundwater was it was explored, but then the only choice was the surface water extraction. And to see that, the only place available is in a forest. So, I mean, of course, that is, so then you check the forest and see the biodiversity, the endemism, the endangered character, and see that, okay, this is a normal regular forest, but still it's a conglomeration of trees which are very important to us. But still the decision had to be made not only by the client, but all the agencies, including the wildlife, the forest, everyone. In the context of development, this has to be done. But we will provide mitigations like constructing 100-meter of a buffer zone in and around the reservoir, and also to provide land, alternative land to the people who lost land. So, I mean, the mitigations will be done. So in total, the development will go on, but in a sustainable way. But if some instances where it is really detrimental that you really can't do mitigation, of course, then projects might have to be stalled, but usually projects proceed. And the second one you asked was that when things are not happening, it is really, for example, to certain projects it has happened, so that when supposing the Central Environment Authority gives compliance, they are supposed to monitor them every 6 months. So when they monitor, when they see that the compliance is really, not proper, then they issue warnings, and then even if it is not proper, then of course corrective action has to be made, like project has to be stalled for some time, and then agencies have to be gathered, and then studies are done again, and then corrective measures will be included, which has really happened to certain projects in the country. I don't want to mention names, but when things were going bad, it was stalled, and then corrective measures were proposed through studies, surveys, and until such time that they take the corrective measures, the permission to continue was not given. Because actually, with regard to environment and social safeguards, Central Environment Authority is the final body, because it really is mandated with the National Environment Act, which ensures good quality of environment for all of us. So yeah, it cannot go on like that. It really has to, comply.
Yeah, but just one more question. Who takes the responsibility for this monitoring of all this environment compliance? Because few years ago, there was a private company who was doing a dye industry, and nobody was monitoring until the dye was disposed to the Calendar River. And only when the river started changing, seeing colored water coming in, then only the thing got exposed.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, monitoring at the very onset, a monitoring committee will be formulated, but the responsibility finally, or the authority of this monitoring lies with the CA, Central Environment Authority, or there are certain institutions, as the case may be, who will be the project approving agency. Like for wildlife projects, CEA has given not wildlife projects, but projects in wildlife areas, the project approving agency is the wildlife, likewise Forest Department, even the Ministry of Water Supply can be the project approving agency, but finally they have the authority. But the monitoring committee will be a group of stakeholders government agency in that area will be there, like the divisional secretaries can be included, the water board can be included, and then the BOI can be included. So all these are there in the monitoring committee, but it will be chaired by an environmental agency. And it is the who gives the authority, because when you give the authority, it says that if this is not complied, I'm going to stop. It is in their approval document. No one approves, just say, okay, you go ahead with it. So many, I mean, more than the approval, pages and pages of the conditions are there. So if unless and until they are met, no. So final approval is from this on, but they chair these meetings so that the regular monitoring meetings will be done. So that is why, I mean, all of a sudden you come after 3 years or after 6 years and say, okay, let's do the monitoring. I mean, that doesn't work that way. It has to be participatory monitoring, and the monitoring committee has to be established even before the project should be approved, and it is done. But I would not say that. That's why I said the implementation stage is rather poor. But as a monitoring and evaluation organization, I think there's a lot we can do in this regard to help, or at least empower the relevant stakeholders into this monitoring and evaluation perspective.
Thank you so much, Madam, for your
Thank you for
detailed
that.
explanation. Yeah, thank you so much for your question and detailed explanation, Professor Hemanthi. And I think we have spent more than 1 hour with very interesting discussion and the presentations and very insightful questions. So this is the time to wind up the session. So for that, let me invite Kasun Ramanayake, Evaluate Representative for Sri Lanka Evaluation Association, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Kasun. Thank you.
Again, once again, thank you very much, Professor Hemanthi Ranasinghe, for your inspiring and insightful presentation on implementing effective monitoring and evaluation for environmental and social management plan. Your contribution has given a deeper understanding of how environmental safeguards can be practically integrated throughout project life cycle. Thank you very much again. And also, special thank also goes to Ms. Bhagya Karawita, our wonderful moderator. Thank you very much for your moderation today. And also Ms. Piroshini Trikawalagoda for your opening remarks. And also I need to acknowledge your valuable contribution of SLEvA. As an organization, your unwavering commitment to strengthen the evaluation community and building capacities across the country. Thank you very much again. Especially thanks goes to our current president, Mr. Amelap as well. Finally, our sincere appreciation goes to all our participants for joining us today evening and your active engagement. We look forward to meeting you again in upcoming SLEvA meetings. And thank you again all. Have a nice present evening. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And before wind up the session, just a small reminder: the Sri Lanka Evaluation Association organizing monthly webinars. The next webinar, you can see the flyer here, will be on 9th December 2025. It is about participatory approaches in evaluation. You can register to these webinars and join with us, and keep in touch with the Sri Lanka Evaluators Association. Thank you so much for joining today. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.